Shabbat Shalom. Let's study from Parsha Korach. You know, when Moses is faced with Korach's rebellion, and it turns into a mob of 250 demagogues, saying, we're just as holy as you, we're just as holy as Aaron, your brother, who's the high priest. We all should be able to offer the incense and the korbanot and the offerings. Moses says, okay, each man, let him bring his fire pan and bring it to the sacred precincts, and there you and Aaron will set an offering to God. It's rejected, of course, because each of these souls represents falsehood, self-aggrandizement, demagoguery, in a way that the Torah teaches us the lesson, careful, beware, those who pursue their place for personal gain. And so the earth swallowed them up, and their fire pans are left, right where Moses told them to offer their incense. And the question that we're left with is, what do we do with those fire pans? Should we just simply bury those fire pans because they've been used by lay people who had no right to offer incense? The point was proven, and the earth swallowed them up. Therefore, we leave them in the wilderness someplace, and we bury them for and to tell that story. That's what we did. We took the fire pans and we buried them. That would be a good story. But of course, after the incident of being swallowed by the earth, chapter 17 of this week's Parsha has God instructing Moses the following. Vayedaber Adonai el Moshe lemor. Adonai instructs Moses, saying, Emor el Elazar ben Aharon HaKohen, tells Elazar, Aaron's son, Vayarim et hamachtot mibein hasreifa v'et ha'esh zre'ala ki kadeshu. Take those fire pans from amidst the fire and the ashes, because they have become holy. We're a little surprised. Rashi's not surprised, because they were used in a sanctified precinct for the worship, or potentially for the worship of God, and thusly they've become holy. Kikadeshu, on that which has become holy, Rashi says, hamachtot. The actual fire pans are holy vessels now. V'asurin b'hana'ah. You can't really gain any benefit outside of holy work from them or with them. Sheharei aseum klei sharet. They were made now into vessels that have to serve in the sanctuary. Ramban brings Rashi's commentary, as is his pattern, a lot of times that he's offering thought, and he says, I don't really know though if that holds, that they just became holy, those fire pans, because zar she'asa klei sharet lahakriv b'chutz ba'isur eno mikudash. If a layman who made something into a vessel of holy service tries to use it to bring an offering outside the sanctuary courtyard and it's not accepted, then it doesn't seem to me that it's really made into a holy vessel. How am I to understand that they've become holy? Well, he's cognizant, the Ramban, Nachmanides, of the third verse in the chapter of chapter 17 in Numbers. Et hamachtot ha'chataim ha'ele benafshotam v'asu otam reku'ei fachim tzipui lemizbeach ki hikrivum lifnei Adonai vayikdashu vayihiyu la'ot livnei Yisrael. The third verse in the chapter says, the fire pans of these sinners against their souls, they shall make them hammered out sheets as a covering for the altar. For they offered them before God, and so they have become holy, and they shall be a sign to the children of Israel. Ramban says, it's God that really turned these fire pans into not holy vessels per se, but a sign, la'ot, as a sign for the children of Israel, and God is permitting their use in the holy precinct. It's not that they became sanctified. It's that God is now saying, after this whole episode, here, use these for the altar, hammer them out. They're going to be a sign for you. Very interesting. Should they have been used in the holy precincts as a sign to the children of Israel? Or should they have been buried so we could tell the story that, in fact, like the rebels themselves, the mob of 250 leaders only in it for themselves, that their fire pans were not usable either, and we buried them out there in the midbar? What's a sign in our tradition? Let's take the notion of a sign that we put on our hands and between our eyes, the tefillin. So they're called signs as well. We create them in order to put scrolls within the boxes of the tefillin, and in those boxes are scrolls that have passages from our Torah that remind us that we were taken out of Egypt, and that we are moving from servitude to Pharaoh to servitude to God, of God. So as servants of God, we know that our lives have to be full of mitzvot, and we recognize God's authority as the giver of Torah on Sinai. We also recognize God has great authority because of the gratitude we have for all of creation. Shabbat is another sign. And Shabbat is not only a time that we remember the going out of Egypt, but it's a time that we recall that 6 days God made the world, and on the seventh God rested. And so we recognize through that sign that God is the God of history, the great Redeemer, and God is the God of creation. So now what is this sign? This metal that's hammered out from the fire pans of the falsity, the untruth that's represented by Korach's rebellion. Well, according to a commentator also from the Spanish lands called the Akedat Yitzchak, here's what the signs symbolized. They symbolized the victory over falsehood. They were used, admittedly, by sinners, but served to vindicate in the end the cause of truth. They became a sign to the children of Israel. Whatever uproots evil and helps create the true pursuit of holiness as we understand it from Moses and Aaron and our Holy Torah, that which vanquishes the enemy, who comes and says, I have my own interpretation of how we should do mitzvot. And I think there, the Akedat Yitzchak is remembering that Korach challenged all kinds of Mosaic interpretations of how we do mitzvot, how we wear tzitzit and need a thread of blue, how we ultimately hang the mezuzah on our home, and how we create a system of tzedakah, that whoever is vanquished, whoever vanquishes the enemy and creates a holier vessel out of that which was used to try to uproot holiness and oust true leaders, that sign helps us make progress in how we live our lives, understanding that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, our rabbi, our teacher, started the entire tradition that we need to embrace. So that sign to the children of Israel needed to be in the inner sanctuary, where the Jews came to do their worship and meet not only with their leaders, but encounter the very presence of God. To understand that true authority sometimes is granted by the divine, and authority in our Jewish lives comes through a received and accepted tradition, and not just every man for himself, like Korach really wanted to try to pursue in the challenge that he made to Moses on that level, according to our commentaries in our Midrash. And of course, when you see a mob of 250 gathered around a leader like a Korach, who's a demagogue, you have to ask, what reminders do we need, and where do we need them in order to put down such rebellious behavior and the rebels themselves? So the question stands. Should we have taken those fire pans of Korach's rebels and created the kind of covering for the ark out of that metal that they had recovered, or should they have done something different with those fire pans? Would love to hear your thoughts or get an email with your impressions of this part of the story. Shabbat Shalom.